Like, she had blacked out pretty much at this party. And one of her friends just, like, popped her in an Uber by herself. Oh. Sorry, I live next to a construction site. I know I've said that before. It is super annoying because every single time that I sit down and try to film something, someone just seems to be like hammering something very, very loudly. I was just thinking that I would get ready because I'm running late. But something dawned on me a couple of days ago, because like I do read comments. I'm the worst at replying to them. I'm also just like the worst at like replying, like when people text me or like, yeah, message me. I'm trying to get better at it. It made me realize how many of my audience members are like sort of just embarking on college or university and young adulthood, and it got me really thinking about my undergraduate degree and just the things that I have learned now that I've taken away from that experience that I would have done completely differently. And I was like, let me just make an advice video. What if we just talked about it? What if we talked about it? If you've watched like some of my really old videos, I had like a really bad roommate situation. I'll link that like story time below that I filmed a couple of years ago, but it was just really not a good time in my life. I was talking to my friend the other day and she was telling me about her college roommate because she's still finishing up her last year right now. Like, I just forgot how like a bad roommate situation can really ruin a lot of things in college, and like it's really kind of like a traumatic experience. I really forgot because my first 2 years I had some of like the worst roommates ever, like calling the cops on people. There was one who didn't shower and I had to confront her, and it was a horrible time in my life. And then my second year it was even worse and like so bad, like I just genuinely won't tell that story online. Like it's just, yeah, anyway, it's just so bad. And I stick to that. I will never divulge that because it was like, it's like, there are things that are deeper that are like not for the internet, you know? Then I went home, and then when I lived in Scotland, I lived alone, and that was like such a healing experience for me because I just lived in this little tiny room in Scotland. Like, it's in all my videos. Like, I had the best view. I had like my own chair, and it was like still like, it was kind of a nightmare still. Like, at Edinburgh, like, people would go out clubbing, like, literally every single night of the week. Like, my neighbor, God bless him, he was really nice, but, like, he would just blast ABBA songs from, like, 10 to, like, 11 every single night. So, like, there was just, anyway, that was funny. But he was nice, and you just, like, certain things you just, like, get used to living with people, living near people. My last year, I lived with, like, another random girl, but then, like, that was my roommate, Claire, and we turned out to be like best friends. Like, she's my literal soulmate person. And like, I've sort of forgotten how bad my first 2 years of college were because of my horrible roommates, plural. Let's just get into some of the notes that I took. This is interesting. So I wrote that it might be some of the hardest years of your life. Yeah, when I went to college, I was like, oh, it's gonna be so good. Like, everyone's gonna wanna make friends. It's gonna be so nice. And I made one friend my freshman year. Maybe three, but like we didn't click. It was like literally pulling teeth to make friends my freshman year. I have never had that hard of an experience making friends in my life. Like, I just didn't click with people. And sometimes that happens. Like, sometimes that's just life. And then I really realized that, like, it was definitely, like, college at Charleston, I had some great memories there, but, like, I really had to try really hard to make friends. I just, like, kind of stuck out like a sore thumb there, to be honest. And it was definitely a place where it was like, what's that, like, that saying where it's like, you grow where you're planted, but, like, it was bad soil. Pretty much. And then when I went to Edinburgh, I found it to be the easiest thing ever to make friends. Yes, still hard because like you're in a new place and you're in a new environment, but like it was so much easier. And even here, like, I have found it super easy to make friends and connect with people. Yeah, I think sometimes it just really is where you are. And if you're struggling in your first year of college to make friends, like, it might be just where you are. And I hate to like say that. And I had plenty of times where I was like, should I transfer? Should I do this? But college was so expensive. It was like the credits might not transfer, and that's a whole nightmare. So I just kind of stuck it out. And I'm glad I did because like my major was very specific to the school that I was going to. But I mean, I try not to have regrets, but that is something like I tried to make the most of it instead of switching. But like my first 2 years of college were like bad. They were kind of bad, yeah. I still had really nice friends. Like, I have 2 friends from like those first 2 years of college that like got me through it, and I love them so much. And like they were ride or die people, like just so lovely. I would love them to the day I die. I literally wrote on here, don't drink things that strange people give to you. I feel like that's just good advice. Yeah, if you're at a party and someone's like, hey, drink this, don't do that. I feel like that one's self-explanatory, but don't do that. Jungle juice. Don't drink the jungle juice. Especially if you're going to American college. Like I don't know if they do that here. They must. I don't know. That's a really good question. I've never encountered that here. Let's talk about parties. So my freshman year, I was like so focused on doing well in school and like proving myself that way and like figuring out who I was that way that like I didn't really know how to go to parties, or like I just felt like very uncomfortable doing that. And I never had a good experience at a party. Like my freshman year, I think I went to like maybe 3 or 4 parties max. I was also just like deathly afraid of getting in trouble because it's illegal to drink. So like you can get huge citations and fines in Charleston. Lots of people do get fake IDs, but I didn't because I was scared, which I think I don't regret that at all. Yeah, I had fun maybe at like one party, but again, I don't know. I just didn't know how to fit the vibe of like Charleston. So like I think my outfit was just like, it was just like a little bit too, I don't know. It was just everything I did, I just felt like was wrong. And yeah, it was not good. And I was also just like, I went with my good friend Leah, who I love so much, to these parties, but they really only get good and like going to parties or going out when you have good people around you. Like once you already have good going out friends. And that didn't really happen for me until I went to Edinburgh, because my sophomore year was just like, oh my god, my sophomore year was just a nightmare. But if I had like friends come and visit me, like old friends, like we would, do stuff. Like, oh my god, we had a blast. Sometimes it really just comes down to who you're with. And sometimes like, I think that if I had put myself out there more my freshman year, which I don't think I was ready for, which is completely fine if you're watching this video and you're like, I'm scared, like, it's okay to be scared. It's totally valid. I think my biggest advice is like, if you have like 1 or 2 people, like go and just like talk to people at these parties, and like that's how you sort of meet the cool people that like you will be friends with. When I went to Edinburgh, like I just literally went to everything and said yes to everything in like my first 3 weeks, and that was the key. That was the golden key of making friends. And that whole thing was like, that was weird because like I had like real people who went to the university friends, but then I also had friends who like were study abroad students, but then they left, and like that's like a whole other nightmare that you can watch other videos about. Yeah, and if you're going to parties, always stick with a friend. I had a girl my freshman year who, one of my roommates actually, one of my flatmates. So like it was me and my like good friend Leah at the end of the hall, and then the other end of the hall, we were in like a suite of like 8 girls, but it had dwindled to like 5 at this point. But the other 3 on that side of the hall, they would all go out together. And one night they all went out, and this one girl who like didn't really drink much at all just went out and just started drinking as much as she could as fast as possible. And she got to this party and was completely, like she had blacked out pretty much at this party. And one of her friends just like popped her in an Uber by herself. When she got back, she basically had, so in a dorm, you have to like scan in. So you have to go past RAs, and if they can tell that you're like, you've had something to drink, like they have to report you. So she basically came in and like, she got sick, like coming up to our dorm. And anyway, she had to go to like AA, I think, or like some sort of like board meeting where they were like making sure that she wasn't like an alcoholic. The whole thing was just like absolutely wild and unnecessary because she just hadn't been given the proper tools of like, I would say like, this also happened to another friend of mine. God bless her. This is actually such a funny story. And I don't know if it's like okay for me to say this, but this will never get traced back to her. But she drank so much one night that this was her first party ever. Like she was basically just like pre-drinking with these people, and they gave her like a bunch of shots to try, and she'd never had a drink ever in her life, and she did like 3 shots in a row, and then she actually ended up throwing up out of a window of a frat house. And I just think that is so iconic. And notice how all these stories about other people, because I was so, yeah. And then sort of back to the roommate thing. This is good advice. I wrote this down. Is that sometimes confrontation can be a good thing, but I think one of the best advices that I've ever taken away is like, if you know that a confrontation, reflecting on whether you should actually confront somebody is a really good thing to do before you actually reach out to them. Because if you don't know a person well enough, or if you do know a person well enough, that like, they won't take confrontation well. You know that like, whatever the conversation is, whatever you bring up, it will not be taken well. Do not bring it up. don't bring it up. Because we had one roommate. She got so mad at everything. And then there was like one, this is the one, if you watch my other videos, like she was calling the police on like our upstairs roommates. And there were a couple times where people confronted her about like she had left moldy food on our counter for weeks on end. And they was confronted about her with this. And obviously she didn't take it well. She was calling the cops on our upstairs neighbors for walking around. Why we felt the need to confront her about this, I know I was living there and it was pretty intolerable to live with her. I just think that I would have saved myself so much heartache and drama that last month if we just kept quiet, if we just didn't say anything. And I think that there are times when you should speak up for yourself, and you should. I'm literally taking forever to do my makeup. I'm sorry, this is going to be a really long video, but there are just some times where it's like, I have learned this along the way. Like, I live in a house with like 6 people. I'm a very clean person. Like my last roommate, she was very, very clean. But like, I have to manage my expectations here. Like I live with 5 other people. Like I can control this part of my room. And that is how I keep my sanity, is because like, this is what I can control. Can I control the other bits? No, I can't. I would, instead of driving myself crazy, being like, which I had really nice roommates to be clear, but I'm just saying like, I know people who live with roommates who are really messy, or they do things that they don't like. And then like, there can be some times where confrontation can be good, but then there can be other times where it's like, it's just not worth your own personal sanity. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm just trying to say, is like, pick your battles. Yeah, and there were definitely battles my sophomore year. Like, I can't get into that story, but like, that I just like don't think I would have picked, because I should have known the person that I lived with, even though that was a very complicated situation. It was just, I should have just lived with it for however long I had to, but I felt like we had a friendship that I could bring these things up, but looking back, it just was not a good idea. And sometimes, like, in that scenario, I felt like I could bring it up because we were friends, but, like, our issues, but it backfired, yeah. Having a bad roommate like that can really, like, ruin your mental health, and, like, I just, like, hated being in the place that I lived, and that is a horrible feeling. That is a really horrible feeling. And like, if you're not enjoying college because you have a terrible, terrible roommate and living situation, like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I know so many people that this has happened to, so many people that have never experienced this before, which is just wild to me. Like, they just have gone through life with everything being perfect, and that sounds nice. But if you live with someone who's a nightmare, like, just know that your lease is gonna end, you can move out, and you should, and your life will get a whole lot better. And you're not like a failure at college or at university, because that's what it can feel like. At the time, you're just like, oh my god, like, these are supposed to be the best years of my life, like, nobody else knows what this is like, you know, like, oh, this is terrible. And it's just like, no, like, it'll be over, and you'll have some good stories to tell one day. I don't really know what I gained from those experiences. I don't actually know if I gained that much, to be honest with you. And if I could go back and not do random roommates my first year, I would do that. No, because then I wouldn't have met Leah, so that's, yeah, I don't know. But then I think, like, the other part of college, too, is just, like, figuring out, like, healthy coping mechanisms. If you're procrastinating, and then you're dealing with, like, a horrible roommate, and, like, you have all of these other horrible things going on at the time, like, you really have to learn discipline to just, like, get stuff done. And, like, look, I had plenty of breakdowns in college, as many of us do. Not as many as other people that I knew. I knew one girl who would just go to the bathroom and cry because her living situation was even worse than mine was, which is a crazy statement, but it was a lot worse. But when you get to the end of it, you have to do things that you want to do and that you feel are going to be fulfilling for you. Like, I wanted to study abroad so badly, and I wanted to do the major that I did. By the end of my career of college, you know, my last year was not stereotypical. I mean, I had basically been away from my college for 2 years because I took a gap year, and then I was living in Scotland, and then I came back and I was like sad because I had to leave Scotland, and then I had to live with like this brand new girl, and I was like, I don't know if she's gonna like me, if I'm gonna like her, like what if it's just like last time? And then it all ended up working out like really beautifully, and I ended college with like a new best friend like for my whole entire life. Like, I love her so much, and I made the best of it. I didn't graduate knowing anybody in my class. I barely knew anybody in my major, but I worked really, really hard. I got into a grad school that I really wanted to get into. I graduated with honors from the major that I loved. I studied abroad for a year in Scotland. I did tons of work experience, and I was in a good place for my future. And like, your life doesn't end when college ends. Like, I'm in grad school right now, and like, I really love grad school. Like, it's really, grad school's fun. I have really nice friends, I'm like doing what I love, and I never could have done this, and it's just like a new experience. So I think knowing that your life doesn't end when college ends, like if it's not perfect, which like I can guarantee you, your time in college is not gonna be perfect. Like it's just gonna be, like it might be really bad. I think a lot of people have like really big like mental breakdowns in college, and that's like the first time that they experience it. Sort of like the pressure of like doing well, but then like also just like the relationships that you have like can be messy, and you're young and you're sort of like trying to figure all of that out, and your living situation might suck. Also, just learn to take care of yourself, like in whatever way that is for you. You know, I found like I have always lived away from home since I was 18, except for that one year I went back during COVID, and like I was watching the show Beef, this really great comedian. It's a great show, but there's this line in the last episode where she's like, when you have somewhere that doesn't feel like home, like you retreat into yourself. And like, I just think that that's so true. Like, there are just some times like living away from home, like when you're in a new place and you're dealing with all of these new people and new things, it's like sometimes you just like need a day to just like, at least I do, like to just like find home within yourself and just like let yourself breathe and let yourself just like do, you know, make your comfort meal and go to bed early and like, you know, take care of yourself. Like, that's what that means for me. Yeah, and I think, you know, the biggest thing that I had to learn in college was how to let my hair down and like how to have fun, which like I know sounds like super weird, and it is, but that is just like genuinely, that was my experience in life. Whereas like I think other people sort of have to like learn responsibility, and yeah, studying abroad was a really big component in like me figuring out. She cut me off. But it was also just like I figured out who I was through hanging out with people who like matched my energy and who were kind and who were like, who wanted to be my friend. That's my other biggest advice. Like, don't spend time with people who are mean to you. Like, I just think that being by yourself is so much better than being around people who don't appreciate you for who you are. Yeah, I stand by that so fervently, which I think being around people in general and like giving people the benefit of the doubt is so important too. Like, that is something that is great. And like, not everybody that is in your life has to be your best friend and like has to make you feel amazing. Like, sometimes it's just about like being around other people, and like I think that's something that our generation like kind of lacks in certain ways. So it's like finding that balance is also an important part of university. Yeah, this was just like kind of a thing that I had stuck in my head. I was like, oh, let me just get ready and talk about life. Yeah, if you're currently struggling in university, I hope that this maybe lent some understanding to you that like it's not always going to be perfect, and it's not always going to be what you see in movies or on TV. Like, sometimes it can be really bad. And I had some of the best and some of the worst years of my life during university, so keep that in mind. Yeah, anyways, it was nice to talk to you guys again. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe. And give this video a like if you liked it. And then also comment down below if you have finished university, or if you didn't go to university, because I always talk about that as well, or taking a gap year or whatever you did, and just figuring out being young. I mean, leave your advice down below, because I always read like such beautiful things from you guys in the comments of like lending your advice to other people, and it's always really nice stuff. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Lisa says to have fun.